Okay, hi team. Slightly different setup. Can't see my face. But wanted to go through some of the biggest mistakes that beginners make. Not just beginners, actually, most tag players, but specifically for beginners. And sometimes cutting out some of these things might help you individually improve, or maybe even your team. So the first thing is kind of a bit of a corporate one, but arguing with the ref is probably a really good one to kind of try and cut out. Um, Often when you're playing sort of beginner level tag, the referees are also going to be sort of beginner level and like challenging them or like appealing for stuff or you know whatever, giving them a hard time is probably not going to improve their decision making. And make them second guess themselves. They're going to have a crap time, and if the ref's having a crap time, then they're probably not going to be able to facilitate a good game. I would challenge people who like struggle with this to try refereeing themselves. I know TTR are always looking for referees, so there's no shortage of opportunities for that. But refereeing a game as a player, you should get a good understanding of what it feels like, and how sometimes some of the rules are difficult to call. Like contacts are tricky ones to call, late tags, things like that. Um, so yeah, I think a really big mistake for people is getting all over zealous and energetic, which is great, but arguing with the ref doesn't help anyone really. So the second thing on this list of mistakes that beginners make is I would say passing too much. So passing is one of the more important elements of kind of any code of rugby, probably maybe even the most important thing. It's literally how you move the ball. But it's also one of the more like difficult skills to learn, and by its very nature is kind of the riskiest thing to do. It's literally the ball is in the air, and if you drop it, it's a knock on and it's a turnover. So you find people like throwing it about all over the place, especially in their own half, chucking it around, dropping it, and then wondering why they're conceding loads of tries. Holding onto the ball is probably probably the safest thing to do. It's kind of boring, and like people don't like one up rugby or whatever, but passing it once from dummy half and then just running forward is probably going to be way more effective in beginner leagues than trying to pass it around teams, especially if your whole team doesn't have a sort of high level skill in passing and catching. That's not to say that you shouldn't be working on passing and catching. 100%, definitely. That's like aspirational goals, like to get really good at passing and catching at least 5 meters off both hands. If you can spin pass, that's great. Having one or two players in your team that can really like pill a ball is obviously going to be helpful. But it's not that helpful if you're bullet passing 20 meters to someone who is struggling to catch a rugby ball. So let's be sympathetic with the passes, play to your team's strengths, and yeah, if you need to get closer in order to facilitate a better pass catch percentage, then do that. Yeah, I suppose the thing to remember is that if you've been playing rugby a long time, you've probably had thousands and thousands of reps of passing and catching. There might be people playing tag rugby who've never touched a rugby ball their whole lives. So just try and keep that in mind in terms of if you're a slightly more skilled player in a beginner team, think about how you can facilitate your team performing well and not just fizzing, your excellent passes at people who might not be ready to catch them. Third on this list is kind of probably the biggest one actually. I don't know why I didn't start with it, or maybe should have ended with it for sort of dramatic climax. But ignoring your female players. Obviously, it's a mixed gendered sport, tag rugby. I mean, you can play it single gendered, but that's usually like higher up, sort of Super League and international level or representational level. But for the most part, tag rugby is mixed gendered, and if you're not including your female players, you're essentially playing 4v7 most times. So you're at a numerical disadvantage. The other thing that's kind of unique to tag rugby is that female players are worth more, essentially. Obviously, with the 2 points, you kind of want to get your female players involved as much as possible. The more that you can get them involved, the more threatening your team is, the more that the defense is going to have to defend the women in your team, and maybe not defend the men as much. So the other thing is to think, like, if you've got a female player who, you know, maybe is new to rugby, the way to facilitate their improvement is to give them the ball as much as possible. So first 3 tags, get them in the middle, give them the ball, let them run, let them get comfortable holding the ball and like getting tagged and running with it. And then sort of the, you know, for 4th and 5th, if you are a guy who thinks, you know, that you're able to kind of line break whenever, fine, go for that on 4 and 5. Don't do it 1, 2 and 3, because that's just boring, and it just means the rest of your team are just kind of like feeling left out. Do it on 4 and 5 if you can do it. It's not all about you at the end of the day, but if you can get through 4 and 5, and then when you get to the try line, look for your female players at the try line to get the 2 points. You know, that's great, and the female players in your team will know to start running support lines off you, and before you know it, they're going to be putting you through holes, and you'll be absolutely smashing teams. I mean, I remember when I first started playing, I would score sort of like 7 or 8 tries in a game, and we would lose 25 like 8, because I was scoring all the tries and not really giving it to anyone else. So it doesn't matter how good you are or how prolific a scorer you are, you can't do it by yourself. And ignoring your female teammates is a huge error. Mistake number 4 is chasing too much in defence, like hurtling around like a mad person. So have a look at this whiteboard. So like this, ball goes here, they pass it out here, and then you get this marker absolutely hurtling to try and make this tag here. Fine, sometimes you make it, especially if you're like a lot faster and everything, cool, you make the tag and everyone's kind of like, yeah, nice. But really, like, when you step up even a little bit and you're playing against even a remotely good team, the likelihood of you catching that hard. Secondly, they can hit flick and you miss and you're out the game, and now you're playing, you know, 4v3 in this situation. If you're running really hard here, you're getting tired, you're out of place, they could pass a ball back in here, and now you're playing, you know, 3v2. Just like, chill. Defend as a team. If you're the marker here, let's reconnect with the line and make sure that we're all sort of doing it together. You don't have to make every single tag as much as you might want to. And, you know, I've seen at sort of lower levels, you get this one like super athletic person at marker who makes, you know, 5 tags in a row. Cool, yeah, fine. But, you know, it's not really improving you, and it's not really improving your team. So, you know, you would never ever see anyone at like higher levels than beginner defend like that, because it's kind of crazy, basically. But the main thing is that you're kind of doing it yourself, and you're not letting your team have an opportunity to improve in their tagging and their defense. You want to defend as a team and, you know, shut people down because you're playing together, rather than some random person has just had a lot of Red Bulls that day and making loads of tags. So yeah. Okay, the next mistake is spinning. So spinning is a funny one, because I think for people new to rugby or new to tag rugby, are trying to unlock skills in order to make them more difficult to tag. And one of the easiest things to do that makes tagging quite difficult is spinning. So I think you see it a lot at lower levels, where you have people who get the ball and they, once someone gets close to them, they just start spinning. And again, maybe the referee, if they're at beginner level, might not call it as often. But essentially spinning is quite dangerous, and you get a lot of broken fingers, a lot of broken thumbs, a lot of like awkward hands in awkward places. You get elbows flying all over the place. You get black eyes, broken noses. Like it's a mess when people start spinning. You can do, obviously, like a spin, like a half spin, or like a, you know, you've just over rotated or whatever, I guess you can't help that most of the time. But if you're really like going for a hole and then just spinning, there's it's dangerous, but also it means that you're almost definitely not going to pass. It's very difficult to spin and pass. Only like really good players can kind of do a half spin, running backwards, you know, throwing the ball like to their teammate, and you know that's very high level stuff. And even then, they're not fully spinning. So I would challenge you that if you are someone who enjoys spinning, because it's kind of easy and it's a good way of people missing your tags, I would challenge you to try and hip flick, which is as you run to the gap, you're just moving your hip in order, you're timing it so when someone tries to take the tag, you move your hip out of the way, but you're still running straight. It's a bit more difficult, but it's so much better because you can continue your pace at a relatively like good speed. It doesn't slow you down. It also means that you've got two hands on the ball and you're running forward, and you can probably pass as well. It gives you a lot more options, and you're almost definitely not going to get done for a contact. The moment when I'm reffing lower league, the moment someone starts spinning, I'm just thinking, if they even make the slightest contact with someone, I'm gonna have to ping it for reckless, and like, because you're causing a contact, you're not looking where you're going, and I've just seen too many injuries from spinning. So I know it's tempting because it's one of the first like attack moves that individuals learn, and that is actually quite effective in making people miss your tags, but it's not that good. I guess the other thing is to think about like your trajectory as you improve as a tag rugby player. Where do you want to be playing? Do you want to continue playing beginner level? Because if not, and you want to sort of play higher, better defenders can defend spinning players. It's quite easy, really. Smart players will just stand in front of them and take a contact. I don't really like that either, but that's a whole other school of thought. But good players, good defenders will wait for the spin and then just, you know, wait until the tag comes back around, and then they'll just take it. So yeah, if spinning's working for you at beginner level, maybe start thinking about what are the next skills that you can kind of work on to improve your attack. Cool. Okay, those were 10 big mistakes that tag rugby players make, specifically aimed at beginners, but there are a couple in there that were aimed at sort of just the tag rugby playing population. But yeah, maybe there was some stuff in there that was helpful. It's not really a tactics video, but yeah, I'll try and make more video. I haven't made a video in quite a while, so I thought I'd change it up, and make something a bit more light-hearted. But yeah, cool. Thanks for watching. Bye.